Now, is Congress going to send out monthly stimulus checks for all seniors and Social Security beneficiaries? And will all Americans get the fourth stimulus check that is needed? Well, in this video, I'll be answering all of those questions. But now, it's clear that the United States is still being affected by the recent surge in the crisis. In the past, this has led to the federal government stepping up to help Americans left struggling in the disruption that the crisis has brought onto the country. In a recent press release, the IRS put out its annual report highlighting the efforts of its employees in 2021. One of the accomplishments touted by the agency has been successfully delivering more than $1.5 trillion to people across the nation through EIP payments, tax refunds, and advanced child tax credit payments. Now, the first round of stimulus payments were sent out in April of 2020. The CARES Act included a provision for a round of stimulus checks. Eligible tax-paying adults received a check of up to $1,200, while eligible dependents under 16 years of age received $500 each. The payments were made to everyone earning under the income limits, and the very first stimulus checks were paid into people's bank accounts, either through direct deposit, paper checks, or prepaid debit cards. The second round of stimulus, a $900 billion package, which was part of the Crisis Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act 2021, was signed off by the former president on December 27, 2020. It provided a one-off check of $600, but this time households were also able to claim an additional $600 for child dependents ages 16 and under. Those who earned under $75,000 in the 2019 tax year received the full stimulus check, while a steadily smaller figure was given to those on a higher annual income, up to a maximum phase-out limit of around $87,000. Those who didn't receive a stimulus payment either through the CARES Act or the December stimulus relief bill were able to claim it retroactively when they filed their tax returns for 2020 through the IRS Recovery Rebate Credit. And just a week after the second round of stimulus checks were completed, Joe Biden entered office and immediately sent out the American Rescue Plan, which gave us a third round of payments. Now, when Biden signed his $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan into law, the eligible taxpayers were provided with a check of up to $1,400, while couples filing jointly could receive a maximum of $2,800 in addition. Families with dependents were eligible for an extra payment of $1,400 per dependent, regardless of the dependent's age. Now, just a week after the second round of stimulus payments were completed, this time around, though, there was no limit to the number of dependents that could be claimed for. And it's really great to see how the federal government has already done their job and sent out billions of dollars in the past. But as the crisis just continues, it's only important that the Biden administration and lawmakers approve a fourth stimulus package with a fourth round of stimulus checks. Discussions for a fourth stimulus payment have already started. There are many advocacy groups and economists that are pushing for all lawmakers to support a fourth stimulus payment. A senior citizens advocacy group has asked congressional lawmakers to deliver a one-time stimulus check of $1,400 to Social Security recipients amid the inflation crisis. Launched by the Senior Citizens League, the campaign is asking Congress for emergency stimulus to assist retirees, disabled adults, widows, and widowers in coping with the unprecedented inflation year. Data collected by the group found an estimated 6.2% increase to the Social Security COLA in 2022, which greatly exceeds this year's increase of 1.3% to benefits. Many people are backing this idea, everybody, that a fourth stimulus payment should be sent out sooner than later. And if you guys agree with me that President Biden must do something about this, tell me in the comments down below.
Go ahead.
Question on inflation, since this is the first time we've had a briefing since those numbers came out. The president has said the administration is going to continue to be all hands on deck to try and bring prices back down. Can you give us a sense of what that really looks like? Because you've pointed many times to parts of the Build Back Better agenda that remains stalled. In fact, one of Senator Manchin's big objections to the bill was the high rate of inflation. So if the Build Back Better plan sort of remains at this impasse, what's Plan B to try and bring down some of these costs?
Well, there's a couple steps that the president is very focused on as it relates to addressing inflation. One, I would note that economists in the Federal Reserve still predict that inflation will come down, will moderate over the course of the year. And the president has also said that he supports the steps that the Federal Reserve, an independent body, has announced about recalibrating over the course of the coming months. And he's obviously nominated a number of individuals to fill the board, which is an essential part of addressing this. But I would also note beyond that, how the president really looks at this is how you're addressing core costs for the American people. So you referenced the Build Back Better plan. First, we believe there's a path forward, and the president's going to continue to fight for it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to Virginia earlier this week and talked about negotiating the price of prescription drugs. So his view is that in order to address costs that have been affecting inflation, but also affecting families for many decades, the cost of prescription drugs, the cost of childcare. We need to move that forward. But it's not just that. We also need to address supply chains in the short term at the ports, rebuild our manufacturing infrastructure, make sure that we are implementing the bipartisan infrastructure law and continuing to press for the competitiveness legislation that will help ensure we have funding for chips for manufacturing of cars here in the United States. And you've also heard him talk a fair amount about promoting competition, and that addresses issues like we've seen price increases in the meat industry and others, and that will help bring down costs for Americans. So there is certainly a significant and important, a vital role that the Federal Reserve plays. They are independent. He wants that board to be completely filled, but there are a number of other.
Thank you very, very much. I'm so proud to join with, I call the Child Tax Credit 6, and we're missing Richie Torres as well, or 7 here. So this is wonderful to be with you, and thank you. I would just say co-conspirators as well, because we're going to fight, and we're going to continue to fight for an expanded child tax credit. Just let me make one point about this being tax season. I want to just put in a pitch this year so that families will make sure that they are filing to get the second half of the child tax credit payment, get that in their income tax returns. And I might also add, for families who've had a newborn last year, first of all, congratulations. But they are eligible to take advantage of the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit, and to be able to get the full amount for it. So I want to encourage people not to forget the second half of the child tax credit. What we're doing today is urging our colleagues to pass an immediate extension of the child tax credit. Passed the House last November. Over the last several months, it's historic tax relief to families across this country. The stories we've heard from families all over, what they have done. We can read stories all day. On the floor of the House, on the floor of the Senate, we could go more than the 8 hours that the Speaker spoke when she did so many months ago on the stories of folks utilizing the child tax credit: food, childcare, diapers, health care, clothing, security. Because these are families who are middle-class families, low-income families. It's been a lifeline for them, and it's paycheck to paycheck. And maybe some folks here don't understand paycheck to paycheck, but our families across this country understand that. And you know, families of up to 60 million children have been receiving the monthly per-child payment, helping them to stay ahead of inflation. We're worried about inflation, but this helps us lower the costs of food, of rent, utilities, and of childcare.